Hans Wormhat. This is kind of a continuation on my last video on sugar and sugar, candy, kind of thinking of the difference between milk and meat is that milk is sweeter. The Milky Way is for children. They're stories that you spoon feed children, and it's like candy, giving you a bunch of sweet stuff that wrecks your teeth. It's not good for you. On the left, of course, an artistic rendition of the outer space fantasy land where the controllers, they want you to believe in that. They want you to think that that's where you live. It's hilarious when you tell people that you believe in the Bible, that it's true, that you believe in flat earth, and you say that it's because the Bible's true. Sometimes people will come back, "Oh, you're just believing all that Jewish propaganda. You're listening to what do they call it? Jewish, I don't know, fairy tales is what they say." But okay, let's just think this through really quickly. If they, whoever they are, if you want to say the Jews, whatever, I just think of it as it's just all a big umbrella under Satan. Satanic deception, there's no way that what they are trying to program you into is flat earth. There's no way, because the way that you're brought up into the system is just showing cartoon after cartoon of fake stuff, mocking flat earth, etc. So when you stand up for flat earth and you stand up for the Bible, it's a weird projection trying to turn everything upside down. Oh, you're falling for that Jewish propaganda of the Bible. What are you joking? If anything, all the propaganda out there is to try to get you to doubt the Bible and to not take it seriously. Okay, so even this image on the right is not really what real life looks like. These images, they're taking long exposures. Already, by the time you're taking a photograph of something, that's not real life anymore. And things get distorted, and it's not true to life. It's just a representation. And somebody brought this up. I guess it's worth mentioning. Maybe that's what all this talk in the Bible is, of you're not supposed to make representations of the things above or below. Maybe it has to do with the fact that they're not giving you a true representation, like these artistic renditions. It makes people live in a fantasy land. So that the image on the right, even if you can manage to go out in the middle of nowhere, the sky probably won't look like that with just your eyes. And I think that it's even changed recently. There seems to be less stars in the sky than there used to be. And I live in the city, kind of. Not a huge city, but I don't have really dark skies. But I just don't, it's never going to look like this on the right in real life. This is enhanced. You're being fed a bunch of sugary candy. Milky Way, it's a candy bar. Got the Mars bar, Astro Pops, astronaut ice cream with all the orange. There's a really insane amount of references of candy and the International Space Station, which is a hoax. It's underwater. It's in a pool. Spacewalks they're just underwater. And they put a ridiculous looking backpack, just CGI a backpack. Back in the day, it's just a scuba tanks, and they covered it with a backpack looking thing. Yeah, it's all scuba, it's all underwater, and they're feeding a bunch of candy to the babies. Look at all this stuff that they allegedly brought up there. Toblerone, Turtles, Dove bars, Ghirardelli, Kit Kat, Snickers, Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, Twix, and appropriately enough, Milky Way bars. They allegedly bring so much stuff up there. It doesn't make sense. It's part of the mocking. None of it really makes sense at all. You've been told it over and over, been told that it's true, and your brain fills in the pieces for you unless you actually question it. It's a hard lie to escape because everybody is going along with it. You need to go totally against the grain if you're going to reject this stuff and just see reality for what it is and not be fooled by tricks. Look at all the watches this person's wearing. The rich and flavorful history of chocolate in space. Space ready chocolate items. In the initial stages, you have chocolate pudding, chocolate drinks, then you start having chocolate chunks. By the time you get to the space shuttles, you start seeing many more foods with chocolate elements in them, such as chocolate covered cookies, chocolate mints, and chocolate candies. Yeah, a cookie. That sounds like something that you can eat in an environment you have to keep really clean. Can't have things flying around. And remember when they brought a really bad gorilla suit, a low quality gorilla suit? That thing would be shedding fur left and right. It's because it's underwater. It's just a bunch of invert masons playing in their underwater fort, making fun of people and mocking people. Allegedly, one of the astro inverts brought like 3 different flutes up to the ISS. It's just crazy. And the ISS is one of the biggest things. You tell people outer space is fake, they'll come back and say something like, well, I can see the ISS with my binoculars. And to them, how does that prove all of outer space land? Because you see a light in the sky? Around Christmas, they put a red light in the sky. Does that mean Rudolph is real? Because they put a red light in the sky? Because you see a light in the sky? That somehow proves something? It's just a light in the sky. M&Ms are one of the biggest candy-coated chocolates. M&M is a 33 reference. If you turn it sideways, you get 33. One of those M&M pieces was later sold at auction for $1,400. That's a multiple of 7. 14 is 2 sevens. Call it a stunt. A red M&M cartoon character was even added to the side of both Spaceship One and its mothership, White Knight. That sounds like real life. Top of the line science stuff, sponsored by M&Ms. You get a red M&M person painted on your top of the line science stuff. That sounds like real life, right? No, of course not. This was an absurd story. Okay, so allegedly the ISS got sent a refrigerator or a freezer unit for all the science stuff that they go up there. You go look at photos of ISS, there's a million cords everywhere. It's like it's a junk heap. They have like Tibetan prayer flags and all sorts of just junk. They just dazzle people with their sets. It's like a movie set. And they just fill up the space with a bunch of junk. That's not how it would work. I mean, it's crazy because they get the people who really sit there and you're like, hey, this doesn't make sense. There's so much more baggage than that. Like, none of it makes sense. None of any of it makes sense. Outer space land, of course, like the ISS doesn't make sense when you sit there and look at it, but it's like we shouldn't even be having that conversation because the entire outer space land doesn't make sense. Your eyes can't see objects that are billions of miles away. It just doesn't, none of their fantasy land makes sense. So it's exhausting when you're having these arguments about, okay, clearly the ISS doesn't make sense, but it's like there's 10 more layers behind it that really, really don't make sense. And it gets exhausting. Halloween candy on the space station. On the moon, astronauts snacked on Slim Jims. Sponsored by Slim Jims. Moon pie. And it's more than just outer space land. In school, when you're in high school, they make you make a cake for the cell. Biology, all sorts of lies. They don't know how this stuff really works. There might be some truth to it. You know, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Maybe this thing is the powerhouse of the cell. I don't know, but do we really know what it is? Do we really know how cells work? Is it really... Or the same thing with the atoms. They want you to think that that everything's like Lego blocks, but it's just probably not how reality works. We'll find out how this stuff works later, but they claim to know all the answers, and they make it infantile. You got to bake a sweet cake of the cell. Fun Stripe, or Fruit Stripe, is an artificially and naturally flavored fruit chewing gum with a strong yet fleeting flavor. It proudly claims to be the only gum with painted on stripes. And if you don't know why I chose this, you're clearly not familiar with some of my videos. Yes, zebras are painted that way. It's an illusion. I think this is funny. This is from a song, I Want Candy, a rap song, or I Need Candy, I guess. Don't care if it's nutritious or FDA approved, it's gonna make me spaz, like Bobcats on booze, a hyperactive juice that only I can produce. I just like this part. And use a giant drill, bore straight into hell, releasing ancient demons from their sleep forever spell, so they can walk upon the earth and get resituated and hawk the diet pills MCP pants have created. It's a really, I hate like musical comedy, but I think that this is a pretty funny rap about I need candy. So that's why I included this. But there you go. They talk about the ancient demons being released on Earth. And of course, you can't think about candy and chocolate and fantasy having a fantastical reality. Willy Wonka, Willy Wanker, The Chocolate Room, Hold Your Breath, Make a Wish, Count to 3. Come with me and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Take a look and you'll see into your imagination. We begin with a spin, like spinning the spinning ball Earth. Traveling in a world of my creation, not God's creation. Some architect, some Freemason. What we'll see will defy explanation. It doesn't even make sense. That's what I'm talking about. You get into these arguments where people are like, I see a light in my sky, therefore all of NASA Outer Space Fantasyland is correct. That's how bad it is, that people literally can see a light in the sky, and that reinforces things that defy explanation. Their BS lies don't even make sense. They don't make sense. If you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. You're here. You're here in God's creation for us. And of course here, this is just satanic mantra. Anything you want to, do it. That is, do as thou wilt. That's a satanic mantra. Want to change the world? There's nothing to it, because this whole place is just fantasy. You can just make up whatever you want. What I learned in school. I'm a POS. Everybody else is a POS. Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. I just thought it was kind of interesting. The powerhouse of the cell is 111 in both Pythagorean and Chaldean gematria. It's pretty rare for something to be the same in Pythagorean and Chaldean, and the fact it's a triple one, it's pretty telling. Why do they use this terminology over and over and over? Part of the spellcraft, when the numbers work out right, they like to use it over and over. And we'll just end with this. It's just a funny thing I saw on Reddit. My totally ripped great-grandmother in the circus, where it belongs to be, where this thing belongs, in the circus. They're all around you. They've always been around you. They just used to hide it better. God bless everybody.